of August. Our respects invocation tonight be given by Councilman Jeff Roberts, and I will lead us in respects to the flag. Please rise.
Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, let us pause and give thanks for all the ways that you have blessed our lives, our community, and this nation. We pray for the ability to reflect upon these blessings and for the humility to acknowledge that these blessings are derived from you and not from our own doing. We pray that your blessings will bring peace, prosperity, safety, and well-being to all of our citizens. As we conduct this meeting, we pray for wisdom, discernment, and the capacity to provide effective leadership to the citizens of Anderson. Allow us to see clearly the right path to take and to make the best decisions for our future. Most importantly, let us conduct ourselves in a manner that is pleasing to you. In your holy name we pray.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started tonight, we have a special presentation by Imagine Anderson, and I'm going to talk a little bit. I'm going to ask Chris Sullivan to come up with me at the mic here.
Okay.
But if you would, but what I would say is, Imagine Anderson is, for those of you who have not been here, it was a visioning process for our community. It was happened in 2006. Carol Burdett, we talk about it a lot. I still have a book on my desk. And, the thing I think that's more impressive is I think it was like 5 areas that the community identified. And this was not the city of Anderson specific, but it was our entire community. And sometimes Carol and John Miller and I have, sometimes we think, man, progress surely has gone slow. But sometimes when you look at what we ticked off on a lot of different things, it really has been quite impressive. I don't think we talk about it enough. And at the United Way, if I remember right, Imagine Anderson was supposed to stand by itself at some point in time, and it didn't really happen. And I think Carol took it under the umbrella of the United Way and kept it going. Put life in it, and we have regular meetings. A lot of board members are here and people that are involved. And I'm just very excited for the direction that Imagine Anderson has happened over the years. And with me today is Chris Sullivan. Chris is the chair of Imagine Anderson. And again, those of you know Chris, once he decides to get involved in something, he gets involved in it on a number of different ways. But I'm going to turn it over to Chris. He's got some remarks.
Am I speaking this way or am I speaking that way?
You can speak
That way?
That's what the camera is.
Okay. I've seen it. All right. Thank y'all for having me tonight. I have prepared remarks to keep me on track, and Mayor just knocked that about out.
That's it all.
I got the first paragraph pretty solid, but I'm going to still go through with it because this is what I've got to do. Good evening, my name is Chris Sullivan. I'm the chair of Imagine Anderson Board. Imagine Anderson was a vision created in 2006 by the city of Anderson, Anderson County, and the Anderson Chamber of Commerce to serve as a catalyst to improve Anderson County in preparation for the county's bicentennial in 2026. There were 5 goal areas: growth management, education, economic development, health and human services, and leisure and recreation, with a total of 105 goals within those categories. Many of those goals have been reached, and many are ongoing in their work to improve our community. In 2012, Imagine Anderson became a part of the United Way of Anderson County. An idea was presented to Imagine Anderson to connect the city of Anderson to the city of Belton by way of a bike pedestrian trail. This fit perfectly into the goals within the leisure and recreation. We created a steering committee for the trail to work with our Imagine Anderson board Tonight, we are happy to present a $55,000 check to the city of Anderson to begin the connection from Anderson University to the actual starting point of the trail. It is the desire of Imagine Anderson, United Way, and the Trail Steering Committee to seek connectional pathways across our county to give residents the opportunities to be more physically active and improve their health. Many thanks to the city for the foresight to make this and other recreational opportunities available to the community and to improve the quality of life and health of our residents. Thank you all for your time, and at this time I'd like to recognize our board. If you could stand up, if you're on the Imagine Anderson board, if you would stand, please. And I want to include Blake Sanders in this, you please. And the steering committee, is here. We'll have to say you two stand up. So our steering committee is here as well. But at this time, we would like to present y'all with a check for $55,000 from Imagine Anderson.
Don't be shy.
Come on. I'm gonna need a receipt for this.
Yeah, and we promise there'll be one you can put in the bank.
All right.
I won't take that one.
We can take that size, Carrie. Just got to back up with your phone.
Mobile deposit.
We can do a mobile deposit.
All right, thank you.
I'm just joking. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. Jimmy's quiet.
Hey.
Thank you. So the agenda of the first meeting, August 12th of this month, were distributed in the packages. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Not hearing any, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
First by Mayor Pro Tem, second by Dr. Thompson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes of August 12th pass unanimously. I have a couple items of old business, and the first item is request second reading of ordinance 24-11 to rezone 10 acres located at 110 Fairway Green from RM10, which is multifamily residential, to a PDD, a planned development district. Ms. McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. These two items, first two items on our old business are a rollover in their second reading. This first item here is regarding townhouse development. Mr. Maurice McKenzie will go over that.
Thank you. This application is to rezone 110 Fairway Green to PDD, Planned Development District. The applicant requests to rezone the property in order to construct an 80-unit townhouse development on individual lots. And our current zoning guidelines in RM10, RM18, it requires townhouse lots to be on 5,000 square foot lots, so larger lots, and that's really not the type of standard that the product sees today. So they are requesting a PDD zoning classification that gives them a little bit more flexibility to write in specific standards for lot size requirements. And in fact, most of the recent townhouse developments that have been approved by you all came in as PDD, Planned Development District. But at one point throughout the process, you did ask the applicant to go back to the drawing board to work on a couple of items. One is to provide more traffic calming measures, and also to make some of their open space a little bit more accessible to those that will be living in the development. So they did that, came back to you on August 12th. You approved it on first reading. So it comes to you tonight for consideration of second reading, and nothing has changed since your initial approval.
Thank you. We did have some good discussion, questions answered, but I will open it up again for any further comments or questions.
Mr. Roberts. Jeff?
Mayor and council, I was probably the most vocal on this one, and they did come back with our suggestions. Since nothing has changed, I move that we approve this on second reading.
First by Mr. Jeff Roberts. Second by Mr. Matt Harvey. Any further questions, comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously on the second and final reading. Thank you. Our second item is request second reading of ordinance 24-12 to annex and zone to R10 single-family residential, approximately .67 acres located on Johannes Circle. Mr. McKenzie.
Thank you. Again, this request is to annex the property, zone it to R10 single-family residential. Then the applicant would like to subdivide the property into 2 lots and then build 2 single-family houses on the property. And at one time, this lot did consist of 2 different properties. It was combined at some point, so they wish to go back and put that line back in again to build 2 single-family houses. And the closest city zoning to this, the contiguous portion, is zone R15 single-family residential. And again, this request is for R10 single-family residential. The intent would have been to go to R15 single-family residential, but the minimum lot size requirements in that is 15,000 square feet. Once they divide these lots into 2, they fall just shy of 15,000 square feet. In fact, one is just 400 square feet short, one is 700 square feet. So it's very close, but it just does not qualify for the R15. So they're requesting R10 zoning, and that does provide the opportunity to add infill development in this area around Johannes Circle. There have been several houses constructed over the past few years in the general area, so this will just add to that. And this came before you at your August 12th meeting. You approved it on first reading. And again, nothing has changed since that initial approval. We've received no phone calls or anything like that since you considered it on August 12th.
Thank you. Again, we had discussion, good comments in regards to this particular agenda item, but is there anything additional that anyone would like to talk about?
Mayor, I make a motion to approve.
We have a first by Mr. John Roberts,
Second.
second by Mr. Martinez. Any further comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously on the second and final reading.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have 4 items of new business, and the first item is request consideration of an ordinance amending ordinance 23-20, providing for a schedule of fees for the use of the City of Anderson's shared kitchen. Ms. McEwen.
Thank you. As you're aware, we did receive federal grants to develop a shared kitchen as an incubator space as part of our economic development entrepreneurship program. It's up and running, and so with this is we had a recent adoption of fees, and we're requesting a new fee to as we adapt and move forward with the user base. Miss Mary Haley Thompson and Francesca will go over this item for you.
Thank you. The City of Anderson established a shared kitchen facility to provide space for food production and a pathway for food entrepreneurs to start and grow their businesses. This project serves as an extension of the city's current business accelerator facilities, making its operation a full-service innovation epicenter for small business development. City Council approved an ordinance on October 9th, 2023, authorizing a schedule of fees shown in your packets. Due to recent demand for private cooking classes and demonstrations, along with pop-up dining room space, the Shared Kitchen's operational services have expanded in order to accommodate the needs of its users. The addition of the proposed fees will accommodate our Shared Kitchen users and support their efforts to expand their current business operations. Those fees include cooking class and demonstration use fee of $50 a class for a 4-hour rental, and then a pop-up dining room space booking fee of $50 per day. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. We did have a work session, and we had some comments, and I didn't want to cut anybody short at the top of the hour because I knew that we would have it as an agenda item. So I would open it up again to questions, discussions for the team.
Mayor, I'll make a comment.
Ms. Martinez.
You know, we discussed this earlier, being an incubator economic engine for restaurant owners. You know, that's a very tough industry. Being in banking, I can tell you when you have a startup restaurant, it's very difficult to achieve and receive financing. I'm actually speaking at a city course on Thursday. And one of the things that we discussed with these business owners is being able to demonstrate proof of concept. In an industry where you see a lot of businesses kind of put the cart before the horse, so you would say, where they get the restaurant started, then try to figure out how to run a business, it can be very difficult. So I could definitely see a lot of value in having this. I think the one concern that maybe was possibly broached a little bit earlier would be, you know, how do we make sure that we leave this opportunity available for all business owners, that we don't have maybe just one tenant. I mean, I think it's a great short-term option, but I think I would want to maybe limit the long-term use of this pop-up space.
That's a good point. Have y'all thought about that aspect of not making it?
Yeah, and we can come back to you on the second reading, maybe with some restrictions that could follow about. Like I said, we don't want them to be in this transition forever. So maybe there is some sort of max time period that they could utilize at this.
And kind of segueing off of that, although only one food business can use both the kitchen space and the pop-up space at the same time, we do have another kitchen space that can be utilized by another food business simultaneously. So that's an option for somebody who maybe doesn't want to use the dining room space, but just needs another kitchen to prepare their items for whatever they're doing, whether that be an event, retail, wholesale, whatever that looks like. So.
Have the concepts that the case studies or the two places that do they have in the dining space, I can't remember, or more than one preparer of food using that space at one time?
So for Walterboro, one user can rent out the dining space over the course of one day, but you know, if somebody else wanted to come to us in the month of September and book out the pop-up dining space on those days available, we could still do that. So having multiple users throughout the month would be ideal to try to expand the people that are able to utilize it.
Mr. Steele?
Yes, so I wonder if there would be a way that we could allow more, I guess, equitable access to the pop-up dining space, because I believe in the work session you mentioned that, if I remember correctly, one user has booked like basically the prime days of the week to serve through the end of the year if we do move forward with this concept. So it's like every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then every Monday, which again could be great for one of those businesses, but if it's truly to serve as an incubator, as Mr. Martinez noted, having even maybe some sort of lottery system or priority system that would allow different restaurateurs to use that prime space during different times of the month, so you can kind of test. It still gives you that test of concept, because if they're in there for a weekend, they're going to see their numbers, they're going to see how they did over that weekend, and then the next weekend they have another, you know, restaurateur in. I don't know if you have that demand there, but I think my one concern is that it could just essentially turn into one business at a time until they get, you know, out of the shared space, and hopefully they do, but then it just becomes almost like a short-term, almost like an Airbnb for restaurants.
Right. But that's a great idea, and you know, the concept of a food hall has been discussed, you know, and we can come back to you again with maybe 2 users at the same time could share the pop-up rental space, and for people that come to the dining space, they have 2 menus to choose from. There are 2 entrepreneurs in the kitchens. So we'll look on expanding that a little bit more to make it more accessible to more users, because I like the idea. I think this could be even more exciting for the public too, to have multiple people always on rotation. So we'll bring back some ideas for you at the next reading.
Ms. Torben?
So quickly, what would So they have to have a business license?
Yes, they do.
So whenever and then they track what they sell or what type of business license would they have?
So they have to have a City of Anderson business license, as well as their liability insurance, covering us, with $1 million in coverage, so.
And then they report their revenues through the state, and being able to produce out of the kitchen, they aren't limited to that cottage food law cap anymore.
Okay, so do they pay a hospitality tax if they were using the pop-up?
If they are
Yes.
serving, out of the food truck, for
I
example,
mean, I
they
assume
would be
they'd
using.
be charging for the food they're gonna be serving in the pop-up,
Right,
so.
yeah, so that would be charged.
Most of the food trucks who already participate in the City of Anderson have the business license and hospitality fee, and it's based on your revenues. So this would just add to those revenues.
And
Okay, go
could
ahead.
we go back and, if, this is first reading, if we approve this tonight on first reading, could we look at, maybe taking a snapshot to like first of the year, so that's 4 months, 3 months, and see, and maybe look a little bit deeper than the revenue that we were showing earlier in the work session of real revenue
Yep,
and real expenses to see what that actually
absolutely,
looks like.
absolutely.
Yeah, and that's been the goal of this, has been, a stepping stone, right? We got the grant, we got the kitchen built, didn't know what kind of users we would have come in. We proposed some fees, maybe they need to be changed, the initial fees in 6 months or a year, kind of see what the response was, and same with this, so another stepping stone, but review again of what the expenses are to revenue, and, another 6 months. I think we're all about being really flexible with this as we get it going. 'Cause
I totally agree, that's what, in the work session, I said, it's only been 4 months.
Right,
I mean, and, we're adding this, another 2,500 square feet of what the city owns, commercial, that was at one time gonna be marketed as, for sale or lease or something to give it away to a pop-up, restaurant to also help the incubator. I mean, I think that's a great idea, it's sitting there empty, at least let somebody use it, with very little, expenses, but, what's the end game? And how do we get there? And so that's why maybe 3 or 4 months is too soon to look. Maybe it needs to be a year from now to have a work session to go back and look on everything. I don't know, I'm not an expert. I don't know if 4 months is a good, on our structure that we have now, but just continually to evolve it.
that's right. Yep.
To get people to start a business into a brick and mortar. And is this gonna prolong that, or is this gonna shorten it, or is it gonna expedite it? I don't know. I mean, I'm certainly not in the restaurant business. That's all I have, Mayor.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Mr.
Yeah,
John
I just-
Roberts?
I think it's a wonderful concept. I mean, I love it. I think a couple of things we mentioned in the work session were the improvements, which are almost none, that we're gonna undertake with the empty space. I see that being a distractor, a big one. Have a muggy, hot afternoon, I don't wanna go sit in an unair conditioned space and pay good money to go eat personally, so I guess it's different if it's an outside venue, but this is an inside venue. So I think there's some things that we can take into consideration here. And then how does that relate back to the fee structure that we need to charge? Because it was an affordable fee structure. Mr. Martinez mentioned proof of concept, great way for somebody to decide, hey, is this the route we want to take? Love it. I think it fits where we want to go with this. But like we said, the single source use kind of deal and some of those things, I think we need to iron some of those details out as much as we can, and then
Definitely.
revisit it.
So if I'm
3, 6
being right,
months.
good comments. I mean, maybe between now and our first meeting in September, we can take these comments in an
It's probably
additional.
going to be an evolving plan either way.
That's what I mean,
But
even
I think it's just a kind of a lot.
the
on-
proposed fees
upfront.
can always be adjusted and amended and so forth. So you guys, anything else for them to take back and kind of massage and present before the
And let me
second
just
reading.
add too, it's a technicality, but I know when the state law speaks to fees, it's usually talking about utility rates and those type of things, but I just blanket across the board that all fees that we adopt as a governing board apply to that statute. Therefore, 2 readings of ordinance, public hearing, so the goal was to, yeah, we're nimble, we gotta go through the process, but there would be a public hearing prior to the next meeting, to meet the law on adopting fees, and even on a just small adjustment here. But I'm not gonna let the process hinder us from being nimble when we need to be to adjust fees. So, just wanted to lay that out.
Good point.
What we need, what the process is.
Anything else?
I just had one follow-up question on, you talked about
Yeah.
the 2 kitchens. Do they have the same equipment in both spaces?
I was gonna suggest maybe, and that's a good question, but maybe give us a quick review of how we got here as far as the funding and the equipment and so forth, if you would, somebody.
Yeah, so a lot of food entrepreneurs were expressing interest in the space. They were driving outside of Anderson to utilize a shared kitchen production facility. So we received 2 federal grants of $500,000 matching each other for a total of $1 million to construct the space. And that took some time, but we opened in April, and we have 2 kitchens now, one for general users and one for baking users. So the baking kitchen doesn't have the stovetop or the fryers.
Flat top fryer and grill.
Yes. So they are a little bit different. So they wouldn't have all the amenities, but still possible for 2 kitchen users to operate at the same time in the kitchen.
Yeah. So, I mean, even to John's point, Roberts, I mean, we have $1 million space, and we spent just our overhead, our team, and, operating, getting us to this point. So, and maybe, at the end of the day, it's very little upkeep right now, but, 6 months to a year from now, it could really, involve us putting some of our money in the game too. Just a thought.
I just want to add one more thing I thought of when we said this. Because there is 2 kitchens and they're slightly different, we should possibly consider, once we get the seasonality figured out, what peak season looks like. And you mentioned it briefly, talking about a food hall. We could put some thought there if they're not competing industries, maybe allowing them to combine, especially during peak season.
Absolutely.
And similar fee structure because it's peak hours. But, you could get a 2-for-1 if you go there for a meal and somebody's there representing a dessert-like option.
Yeah, that's a great
So
idea.
anyways, those are all really good. I like the versatility of it, being nimble, all that is great. So, Mayor, do we need to make a motion for
We
first
do.
reading or no?
And we can keep talking. Is that a motion?
I was gonna make one, yeah.
We have first by Mr. Martinez.
Second.
Second by Mr. Newton.
I just
Ms.
have
Steele.
one brief comment that I
Right
wanted to kind of note. I think noting the differences in that kitchen make finding a booking process that is fair and equitable to all potential businesses is going to be incredibly important. Because again, I think under a current structure, if you end up just having all the peak restaurant hours booked by one user, we're going to end up essentially having the shared kitchen, which is supposed to be designed for multiple entrepreneurs. We're going to essentially have one city-backed restaurant in there for whatever period of time they're in there over and over. So to me, from my perspective, that's one of the major concerns in moving forward with that space, is making sure, again, we have access to all potential food businesses who want to move forward with it.
Does this motion mean from the first reading?
It's just first reading.
Yeah,
and
with all this good discussion we've had, this is going to be, if you can take this information back, and you're going to work with that, all the concerns that we had, I think the motion has been seconded.
Yes, first and second, we're in discussion.
All right.
Any other discussion? Great. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Very
Thank
good.
you. Thank you.
Our second item is to request consideration of an ordinance amending the 2023-2024 annual budget. Mr. Kuhn.
Okay, I'll turn it right over to our Chief Financial Officer, Margaret Martin.
Thank you. So tonight, we are requesting amending our last year's budget of 23-24 annual budget. Council approved the annual budget with ordinance 2307 on June 26th of 2023, and this budget amendment request is to reflect City Council approval of revenues and expenditures that occurred after the original budget was implemented, grants received, or use of prior year funds that were carried forward into the new fiscal year. The budget amendment includes increasing the budget for grants received in 2024, such as police grants, DEA, brownfields grants. It includes increasing the budget for use of American Rescue funds. Again, we've received $14 million. We're able to spend that money through 12/31/26. It reflects use of the general fund's prior year fund balance for the purchase projects that were approved in the prior year but not paid until the 2024 year. And that includes the capital lease that was approved in 22. As you remember with Public Works, they had the supply chain. It took them a couple of years to get some of their equipment. It also reflects the use of general fund's prior year paytail funds for monies received last year but spent this year. It reflects receipt of the police e-share revenues and related equipment and supplies purchased throughout the year. It's also increasing the city's unrestricted fund balance from the restricted emergency fund for safety bulletproof vests for the fire department. And then number 7 on my summary is additional funds received in 2024 that were not reflected in the budget, including surplus of our workers' comp, some overtime reimbursements, and insurance proceeds. In prior years, we used to record these deposits as an offset to the expense, and it was a net effect. Our audit friends did not care for that and want us to show that as a revenue and expenditure, so we are doing the budget amendment for those. So these amendments allow the budget and the audit to more accurately reflect actual revenues received and expenditures made that were unknown when the budget was originally adopted, and therefore comparisons between budget and actual are more meaningful. The detailed ordinance was attached. So we are requesting approval to increase the general fund budget $5,363,000, sewer fund budget $2,446,000, I'm rounding, stormwater fund $931,000, parks and recreation fund $12,000, hospitality fund $807,000, and the transit fund $44,000. On first reading.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
I have a quick question, Mayor.
Ms. Corbin.
Maybe I missed it. Number 6 on your summary.
Yes.
What was that again?
So in our audit report, we had put FEMA monies to as a restricted fund balance item, and we had $29,000 left where we had FEMA money comes in so much later than when we incur the expense, like 18 months later. So we use those FEMA monies for public safety, and in this case, we are using it or used it for bulletproof vests for the fire department.
I'll expand on that for a second. So for everybody that's, or the ones that are new, is that, so when we have a storm event and it's eligible for FEMA funds, we track every expense that we have, from chainsaw operation to the gas we use, personnel, equipment, everything. Then we submit that to FEMA, to the state, and then to FEMA. And oftentimes you're not reimbursed for 3 years on those. So when it comes back, the strategy has been that we set that aside for reinvestment into public safety. In which case, when we did that, the auditors say that's restricted funds. And so in this case, it was a reinvestment right back into the fire department.
So the Brownfields grant, if I'm looking at that, we're at the end of that 3 year. It's only $43,000 left in that 300,000.
Right. So $43,000 was spent this past year. We were awarded 3 years ago, and this was our final year. It ended, aren't we? June 3rd, huh? The end of June of 24.
What projects do we use that again? Anybody?
For the Anderson Mill site.
Mill
So,
site?
yeah, we received it for the Anderson Mill site. We did add a couple other sites to it. What's that? Yeah, Star Cleaner and a couple other ones to do the phase 1s, phase 2s on it, and the research on it. So it paid for that, and some engineering to it. So we can, Foundry and Steel is another one, so we can move it forward to the
Gotcha.
next step.
It was an EPA grant.
Gotcha. Anything else, guys?
I make a motion to approve, Mr. Mayor.
First by Mr. Harvin, second by Mr. John Roberts. One other thing, being the insurance guy, the Smith surplus, is that like a cost share? I mean, is that?
That's the
I can
workers'
explain it.
comp.
So the South Carolina Municipal Insurance Trust, that's our workers' compensation side for the
Okay,
municipal
so that's
association.
works, yeah.
And what they do, since it's a self-funded, owned by its members, anytime it comes in good that year, they'll return the equity or the capital back to the members.
To the
And so
members.
it was good that year for all the members, and so there's a return back.
Good. So we have first, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passed unanimously. Thank you. Our next item is request consideration of an ordinance amending Chapter 62 of the Code of the City of Anderson. Ms. McEwen?
Okay, we asked our city prosecutor, Rain Campbell, to work on this, and I know a couple council members also worked on this as well, to take a look at, there's a technicality as far as enforcing a particular area that Mr. Campbell will go over. And with that, I'll just go ahead and turn it over to City Prosecutor, Mr. Campbell.
Thank you. Before you is for first reading is an ordinance to amend and add a new ordinance titled 62 or Chapter 62-218. It's an ordinance for unlawful public urination and defecation. This ordinance has come about due to input from downtown merchants who have approached some council members, and they've approached Councilman Newton. They've also spoken to our downtown officers and patrolmen regarding issues they're having with people basically using the bathroom on sidewalks and in public areas. This, after speaking with several of our law enforcement officers, they said we have a need for this because our ordinances does not cover this specific type of conduct. We have an indecent exposure ordinance in 62-213, but it's usually more sexual in nature, whereas this is not. So this covers a need for officers to help enforce the morality laws and decency in the city limits. And based on the input I have received from them, they've greatly stated this would be a big boost to help them enforce the city ordinances.
Thank you. Yeah. Questions, comments?
I think this is a critical ordinance. It's something that I know that I've spoken to several downtown business owners, and they've addressed it as an issue with me and talked to me about this as an issue. I've had people in my ward talk to me about how they are more hesitant to go downtown because they've had instances where someone maybe has publicly urinated or defecated while they were eating in one of the outdoor dining spaces or something like that. So I think it is critical for enforcement. I really commend and applaud everyone who worked hard to make sure that we get this on the book. And with that, I'd make a motion to pass this ordinance on first reading.
Second.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am. We have first by Mr. Steele, second by Mr. Newton. Dr. Thompson?
What is the penalty?
It's the same, up to 30 days or a fine of up to $500.
30 days or $500?
Yes, ma'am.
Plus assessments, so it can be over $1,000. Court,
Based on-
Court costs.
court costs, there's court, state assessments, which will put, if you fine them $500 and the judge were to move forward with that fine, then you have court assessments on top of that, which would put it over $1,000 for the maximum fine. I do want to add, if I answer your question, Dr. Thompson. Good. Did I answer your question? Did we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do want to add that we have been looking for it's been very well received and very effective, adding a separate downtown patrol group, and we have a very experienced officer, Officer Epps, Steve Epps, that's been doing a fantastic job at that. However, it can't cover it 24 hours a day right now. We have been looking for another experienced certified officer to fill what we call the PM shift, or the PM through the night hour shift. We've been able to find that officer, and they started today. Won't say the name yet because officer is in training. We'll have to pass the training, but is a certified experienced officer. Excited about that opportunity to provide and build out the downtown patrol group, and so looking forward to that. You'll probably see the new officer doing ride-alongs throughout this week, and then once those are completed, the officer will be out on their own, and they'll overlap just a bit through the dinner hours, and then the PM or the night officer will take on the rest of the duties.
This Monday through Friday right now?
Monday through Friday, and then on the weekends, you remember that we bring in 3 additional officers for downtown every weekend.
Good.
This does not cover sexual actions, does it?
The question was, Mr. Campbell, does it cover sexual activities, this ordinance in particular?
No, ma'am. That's usually the indecent exposure or on a local level, on a city level. But there are state law statutes on the books that cover anything sexual in nature.
This is a good example of government being responsive to what we hear from our businesses. So I want to thank y'all for jumping on it so quickly.
Great. We had a first and a second. Any further comments?
I just want to say that I think it's great, and it's a first step in empowering our officers to be able to do more, because we, their hands are tied a lot of times, and it doesn't always make us feel good. We get the calls, a lot of them. There's only so much we can do. So thank y'all for this, and I look forward to many more ways. Hopefully this is just the first, so that we can implement other ways to maintain our safety and cleanliness, not just downtown, all through town.
I want to echo what everybody's saying, especially what Mr. McEwen said. Anything that we can continue to do with making visible law enforcement downtown. Our downtown is beautiful. I love it. And I think that we need our residents to feel safe, and implementing any kind of zero tolerance policy that we need to have to make sure that our patrons feel safe coming downtown. We need to do that. So I appreciate everybody being on a similar page.
Good comments. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Mr. Campbell. The last item of new business is request consideration of a contract for the removal of the digester lid on the secondary digester at the Rocky River wastewater treatment plant.
Okay, we've talked a minute about this. Mr. Strickland is passing out just an aerial shot of the plant. This is the Rocky River wastewater treatment plant. With this, we have a digester there, and Mr. Banks, our utility director, will go more in detail with it. And so it'll identify on there what's passed out, exactly what we're talking about. And from where we are initially, we need to take another step forward with a contractor to move forward into another phase of engineering. And this is all in the pursuit of a state revolving loan fund for $2.9 million that would cover this project, and then also SCADA upgrades, our control system for both plants, and so upgrades there as well. But Mr. Banks, if you would go through the details and the bidding process of this and your recommendation.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. McEwen. And as he alluded to a few months back, council approved a contract with W.K. Dixon to compose a PER needed as part of the state revolving loan program application. And this was for the removal of the digester lid that's no longer operational, and also included the upgrade of our computer control systems at both plants. That total estimated cost of construction was $2.19 million. And as part of the PER process, we needed to remove the 60-foot diameter lid so that we could inspect the interior of the digester to confirm that wasn't going to be anything additional needed to rehab that digester once we were going, and we needed to do this before the full-blown project so that we could scope it properly and not have a bunch of people guessing, that we could better define the project to get a better pricing. But in order to remove that lid and inspect the interior, we had an intermediate project to remove and dispose of the lid since we could not reuse the lid. We had a non-mandatory pre-bid meeting on July 24th with 4 contractors attending. The bid opening was held on August 5th. We had 2 bidders submit bids. The apparent low bidder was Langston Construction out of Piedmont at a price of $167,900. The other bidder was Cove Utilities from Greenville at a price of $314,200. Our engineers have reviewed the bids and feel that the low bid is complete and valid and recommend accepting it. Therefore, staff recommends council accept the apparent low bid from Langston Construction at $167,900.
Thank you. Questions?
I got one.
Mr. John Roberts.
Thank you. I know Langston Construction, I know they've got a great name and reputation, and they do a lot in this arena. Those bids are so far apart. Did the engineers, W.K. Dixon, did they provide any insight as to
Well, I spoke with Cove. One of their, they had a, when they were looking at it, they felt they could do it differently, but as far as the attaching to the lid and removing, and so, they felt the way that the engineer had spec'd out was going to be costly for them. They had a different approach to it, but to do it the way that it was spec'd out, they added money because they weren't sure. They had some uncertainties on doing it that way because they were used to working the other ways.
Good. Anything else?
How will they, will they crane it off?
Yes, sir. It'll be a very large crane, and that's the biggest expense of that 167,000 is the crane that's coming in, because I think it comes in on like 2 or 3 different trucks, because of the height of that digester and the weight of that lid, and like I said, it's 60 foot in diameter, so the crane has to have a good reach as well.
With that, Mayor, I'd make a motion that we approve Langston Construction.
First by Mr. Harvey, second by Mr. Steele. Further discussion? I guess you really become a political nerd when you ride by an interstate or you fly in an airport and you see these things. And you know what they are. You know, you say, hey, that's it. Anyway, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Let the work begin.
do a field trip?
Yeah. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
First by Mr. Jeff Roberts, second by Dr. Thompson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you.
Chris, you have to field trip that day?
You don't